Today, I'm gonna break down the entire Golden State Warriors schedule to you. I'm gonna leave you with all the key takeaways of this schedule, including important dates such as Klay Thompson coming back to the Bay Area, All-Star break, back-to-back games, road games, and everything that is important for the Warriors season. And if you watch until the end, I'll share with you where do I believe they will finish the season in the standings and what will be their win-loss. Let me show you quickly the preseason games. So look at the screen with me. So the Warriors will start their games in October 11 against the Kings. That's a rivalry, California rivalry, so it's going to be very interesting. First opportunity to see the rotation and what Steve Kerr is going to try. And then they also have a game 2 days later against the Pistons, and then they finish the preseason against the Lakers. So it's very interesting. I know that's not super important, but we will give us a little bit of flavor and understanding what Steve Kerr is thinking for the Warriors, who's going to be the potential start lineup, and how other players fit around Stephen Curry and Draymond Green as well. Let's quickly look to the entire Warriors schedule so I can give you a few highlights before we deep dive in each month. So you're seeing here on the screen, the Warriors opened their first game on November 23rd. It is actually not the first day of the NBA. The NBA starts the day before, the 22nd, and it's the first time in 5 years and the second time since the 2015 title that the Warriors won't be part of the opening night. So they start on 23rd of October and they finish on April 13th against the Lakers. So that day, all the teams play. Is the last game of the regular season. Another important things that you can see here, the All-Star break, the All-Star game is happening in San Francisco this year, February 16. So there's a break for the Warriors between the 14th and then 20, and then the 21st of February, they are back against Sacramento. That's going to be an important break, and I'll talk more about it later. The other important things, the Blue Games. The Blue Games are the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals of the Emirates Cups. So those games are not, they're not defined yet. So the Warriors don't know which going to be those two games. And that's because they may or may not be part of the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals, right? So that's why you see only 80 games in the schedule right now. So the regular Emirates Cup group games, these are the ones that you can see marked with a K, that it starts on November 12 against Dallas, November 15 against Memphis, and then December 3rd against Denver. The Warriors are in what is being called the death group of the Emirates Cup. It's going to be very challenging. We know that Dallas and Denver have been title contenders. The Dallas were in the finals. The Memphis didn't do well last season, but Ja Morant's back. I do expect them to be a playoff contender. So it's not going to be easy at all for the Warriors. Those are the main highlights. Now let's dig and discuss each month, and then we can talk about the breaks, the road games, and everything else. There are quite a few challenges with the Warriors' schedule, and I will show you the first 3 months here, and we can talk a little bit about them. So take a look on the screen. I have already said, first time in 5 years, the Warriors are not participating in the opening night. That's sort of a downwards. It is not a great thing. It's a prestigious thing to be in the opening night. So that's challenging, number one. There's an impact, like a mindset impact on that. The Warriors are considered to have the fourth toughest first 2 or month and a half as a start of the season. So let's look at the games and discuss a little bit, comparing where those teams were in last year at standings. That's why I'm putting here the standings as well for you from the last season. So we start against Portland. I would expect the Warriors to win that game. And then we have a game against Utah as well. I think it's another game that is going to be interesting. We're going to play against Lauri Markkanen, but I expect the Warriors to start. And those are road games. Then the Warriors come and play 3 games at home. Lakers, and a back-to-back games against New Orleans. New Orleans was a play-in last season. The Lakers were a playoff team as well, so those are not going to be easy games, especially the back-to-back. Even though it's both games against New Orleans, they will also be in a back-to-back game. Then we have a game against Houston starting December. It's also a road game. And then a game against Washington. I would expect we can win both of those games as well. Then we have a very, very challenging game against the Boston Celtics. And this game is going to be special, and I think it's going to be very challenging. Remember, we had a game against the Celtics last season that they basically destroyed the Warriors. And it's going to be a very special flavor for Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They were both, let's say, ignored by Steve Kerr. Tatum was part of the Olympic team and barely played. Jaylen Brown wasn't invited and they actually chose to replace Kawhi Leonard with Derek White. And then we have a game against Cleveland, won't be easy as well, also a road game, and a very challenging game against OKC, one of the best teams in the last season. So we start the season, as you can see here, with 10 games, and out of those 10 games, 7 of them are road games. So this is going to be very challenging. And then when we actually come back home, we have a very emotional and difficult game. It's going to be against Dallas. That mark that date, November 12th. That's when Klay Thompson will be back to the Chase Center. It's going to be very emotional for the Warriors. Klay will want to prove himself. Dallas is a strong team, so that's going to be very challenging. And then that's the first game of the Emirates Cup. And then we have another game of the Emirates Cup against Memphis. So we have a 2-day rest. It's the first 2-day rest that we can see here in the schedule. Sorry, actually the second one, because we have one after the back-to-back games. So we have a second day of 2-day rest here, and then we have a second game against of the Emirates Cup against Memphis. And that's, I think, is going to be challenging. Remember, the Memphis Grizzlies, they were not a playoff team last year, but Ja Morant didn't play for most of the seasons. A lot of their players were injured, so I do expect them to bounce back really strong this year, and it's going to be a challenging game. All right, so we wrap the year. We played the last game of the year against the Cleveland at home, and then we go to a break of 5 days. So we play on the 30th of December, and we're going to play again January 2nd against Philadelphia, another game at home. So we start the year, we wrap the year with 2 games at home, and then we're going to start the year with 4 games at home as well. So we play Philadelphia, Memphis, Sacramento, and Miami. And then we go for our back-to-back games on the road, Detroit and Indianapolis. Then we face Toronto, Minnesota, Washington Wizards, Boston Celtics, another very challenging game. Sacramento, another back-to-back games here versus Sacramento, Chicago, Lakers, Utah, OKC, and Phoenix Suns to wrap January. When we get in February, things will start getting very interesting for the season. That is going to be crucial for the Warriors and might define if they really do a playoff and title contender or not, depending on what decision they make on this day, February 6th. That's the trade deadline. So if the Warriors, if during this season they identify that they need to make adjustment, depends on how the players fit, on what Wiggins we are getting, how Buddy Hield, Kyle Anderson, Anthony Melton, all the new players, they come to the game, the Warriors have to decide about making a trade or not. And if that trade happens, I bet it will be to a superstar or a star that can pair with Stephen Curry and really push the Warriors for the rest of the season. So February 6th, that day that we play against the Lakers, it's the trade deadline, and the Warriors will have to make a decision by then. On top of that, February is when we have the All-Star game. We have another break there. And that break is going to be very needed. Like, we're going to be coming from 6 games on the road, and then we get to this break. So it's going to be very important for the Warriors. We wrap the month with 2 games at home and 2 games on the road, Sacramento, Dallas, Charlotte, and Orlando. And pay attention to this date. That's the second Klay Thompson trip to the Bay Area. Another very interesting game, and mainly when we find out what happens in the first one. It's going to be either an opportunity to Klay Thompson show himself again, or the Warriors to revenge a potential first a loss against. Then we come to March. We're almost going towards already the end of the season, 2 months more or a month and a half more. So then we have a few games, Philadelphia, another road. So we came from a road game against Orlando. We have 4 more. So another series of road games for the Warriors. Philadelphia, Charlotte, New York Knicks, Brooklyn Nets, and then a series of games at home. So that's going to be a really interesting moment for the Warriors if they are a playoff contender, if they are fighting for a playoff spot. That's going to be a strong time to push it, right? We have 7 games at home, and it's going to be Detroit, Portland, Sacramento, New York Knicks, Denver Nuggets, Toronto, and Milwaukee. So I can easily see the Warriors coming out with 5 wins at least from these games. And then after the 7 home games, you start a series of road games in March that will end in April. So you have Atlanta, Miami, New Orleans Pelicans, San Antonio Spurs, Memphis, and Lakers. Then you go to 2 home games with Denver and Houston, and then you wrap the season with against the Phoenix Suns. It's a back-to-back game, so we have Phoenix Suns and San Antonio Spurs, the second game at home, and then Portland in the road, and then we wrap at home against the Los Angeles Lakers. And that wrapped all the games for the 2024-25 season. Now, let's cover the 5 key takeaways. First of all, November 12th, mark that date. Klay Thompson will be back to the Chase Center. That's going to be a very emotional date and a very important game for the Warriors. Second, behind the Lakers, the Warriors have the most number of national TV games with 36. That's 5 less than last season, but it's still the second largest. Third, we have a favorable back-to-back schedule. We have 14 games that will be back-to-back, but most of them are at home. And when you look at the pair of games, they are against favorable teams. So I think the Warriors end up doing well on that point. Fourth, the Warriors have a heavy start with 7 out of 10 road games. But I believe that's still favorable by being the beginning of the season. They can recover from that. They can make adjustments. So that can end up being good for them. And last one, Stephen Curry is a big face for the league yet. So the Warriors are not part of the opening night, but they are playing against the Lakers on Christmas Day. They are playing against Minnesota on Martin Luther King Day. So Stephen Curry, the Warriors are still very important and prestigious at the league, and that's great. Again, we're the second team with the most number of national TV games, and that's great for all the fans. It will be a very interesting season, as you can see. A lot of important games. Klay Thompson coming back, Steve Kerr versus Tatum and Jaylen Brown, all that story of the Olympics. We have the Warriors trying to get back to a playoff. Maybe we're going to have a big trade in the midseason to power and help Stephen Curry. So lots going on. It's going to be crazy and it's going to be very exciting. I think the Warriors will do better than last season. I believe they will finish with 50 wins, 32 losses. And I do think they will be between 5 and 6 seeds. So going straight to a playoff, I think they can do it. And I think if they don't start well this season, they will look for something, a trade that will push them to that position. And let me know, do you agree with me or not? I want to hear your opinion about where the Warriors will finish next season. And if you want to know how the organization can help Stephen Curry to push for this playoff and be a title contender, just watch this video here.